Okay, looks like it's gonna work. And record. Hello, thank you for joining the Homeschooling Can Be Fun Challenge. Today's a special day. We're going to have a special speaker, but I wanted to do a little bit of a recap of the first couple of days of the challenge. The first day I talked about don't do school at home. We can do things in a whole different way than schools have to do them because we don't have a whole class of kids that we have to manage like they do. And then the second day, I talked about developing a homeschool mindset. I talked about how learning is natural and enjoyable. Keep it that way. And a way to do that is to use family schooling and life schooling as the way that you do it. You make homeschooling a lifestyle, learning a lifestyle. And so it's all learning is natural and enjoyable. The family is learning together, living together. And so that was what we talked about the first 2 days. And now today we want to talk about how we can do things totally different from the way schools do them. We can do anything we want to do because we're in charge of our own homeschool. Schools have to manage large groups of children, so they have to do things in a certain way. They have to give grades and tests to keep track of everyone. We don't have to do that. So since we don't have a large class, usually I have 10 kids, but they came one at a time, except for my twins. So I was able to individualize and assess how well my kids were doing in learning in many different ways besides tests. And since we're at home and we're a family, we can do things family style. It's not school. So with all of that in mind, I want to introduce you to Dachelle McVey. She's an expert at making homeschooling, especially literature, come alive. So you can take it, Dachelle.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, let me just say I love this topic because in my family, it's kind of a joke. My husband's like, he's the rule follower and I'm the rule not follower. not necessarily rule breaker, but I'm always testing to see. So that's probably why I got into homeschooling in the beginning, is just to not have to do everything the way everybody wanted to. So I love this topic. So wonderful topic. Now I am going to give you a topic. I'm going to share my screen, but when you see it, you're going to go, wait a minute, what? I'll explain it, I promise. So let me share my screen with you first. Okay, so what I call this doing things fun and not following all necessary rules is called enchantment. So I like to talk about adding enchantment to our homeschool. But before I get started, there is a work book / planner thing. If you want to grab it, you can go to How to Chocolate and / enchantment. And you can download that. And that's just a little planner. I'll talk about it in a minute. But if you want to grab that and use it later on, you don't have to use it during this workshop right now, but I'm going to be talking about it. So what is, this is what is a relaxed Charlotte Mason. I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about enchantment. And I'm going to talk about how do we add enchantment and how do we keep enchantment from becoming overwhelming. Because I think there's 3 main points we need to learn. Is 1, what am I talking about when I say this word enchantment? 2, how do we add this kind of thing to our homeschool? And 3, it sounds crazy intense and people start freaking out when I talk about it. So I don't want you to freak out. I'm going to give you ways to not let it become overwhelming. Okay, so first, I'm Dachelle McVey, as Penny so graciously pointed out who I am, and she's so sweet. I love Penny. We have been in multiple conversations on live, and today it's all going well. I probably just jinxed it, right? Because nothing has blown up yet. The last time we were in a live, it was all falling apart on my end. Nobody knew it, but I couldn't see anything. It all went kind of black to me. I was just rolling off whatever I could remember. So today I'm going to hopefully have my notes here and I will not just have to remember everything. But I am the owner and writer at howtochocolate.com, which is a blog where I talk about our homeschool life. And I'm also the owner and publisher at Literary Ventures for Kids, which is a full language arts curriculum based on Great Living books, which is our like Charlotte Mason homeschool. And so we spend a lot of time getting kids excited and inspired to read. but I'm also the mom of three, not 10, but three. I have two in college. I should say I have one in college, one starting in 3 weeks. That's a little nerve-wracking, and one in high school. But I'm also a former traditional teacher. So when Penny's talking about we don't have to do school at home, that's exactly right. And I come from this from a background of being a school teacher and then trying to do school at home and realizing this is a disaster. And going back to my, what did I really enjoy in the school system? What was I enjoying doing? And that's what I started putting into our home life. And that's kind of how we kind of became these relaxed Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, kind of doing our own thing. You may notice I am a little bit of a book addict with Literary Adventures for Kids, and I'm a chocolate junkie since I named my blog Hide the Chocolate. I have had multiple chocolate covered blueberries today just to get me through the day. So that's what's helping me with my stress today. All right, so I mentioned that I call this kind of thing of having fun, doing different things, we call it enchantment. I know some people have different ideas of what the word enchantment means, but I really mean it based on the definition of enchantment. So for me, for us, it's a little bit like a spark of joy. That's what I like to call it. Just this little things that you can add to your day that is like a little moment of creativity. It could be a splash of inspiration. It can be something we call magic dust at our house. And magic dust is basically kind of like a hands-on exploration. It's all these little things that get you excited, get you wanting to do things, have fun. It's not just for the kids, it is for the adults too, because I get a lot of joy out of having these fun little things that we add to our day. And so when we started homeschooling, part of this was I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew that my kids were not getting exactly what I wanted from them, but I wasn't really sure what I was missing. I just knew I was missing something. And I remember us reading a book, and I honestly don't remember what book it was, but I'm pretty sure I could narrow it down to Charlotte's Web or Mr. Popper's Penguins. But we were reading a book, and I don't know what we're talking about, but something about a recipe or something about they were eating, and we looked up a recipe and made some food. And I don't even remember what the food was, to be honest. It might have been cookies or something like that. But we kind of took part of the book and made it into this little moment of fun. It was not in the schedule. It was not in the lesson plans. It totally wrecked the lesson plans for that matter, because we spent an hour making cookies and stuff. But it added that spark of joy, that little moment of creativity, that little bit of enchantment to our day. Now, when I say it's for everybody, I mean it has to work for everybody. So one of the things that people get all upset about and overwhelmed about is because they think, oh, we're going to do all these fabulous things for the kids, and they don't take into consideration themselves. So that's really important, because I personally am not a person who likes to do crafty things. So if you're talking about, putting together all these little pieces and parts and gluing them and glitterizing them and all this stuff, this is not my cup of tea. Now, I'll do it if I have to, but I really don't like that kind of thing. So when it comes to enchantment, I'm probably not going to do that. Now, that doesn't mean that my kids don't experience those things. I let the people who like to do that do that. And I stick with other things that I really enjoy. So when you're adding these little bits of enchantment to your day, make sure that it's something that works for you. For example, if you're not someone who likes a messy kitchen, or you don't like to cook, then maybe digging out a recipe and you all sitting around all afternoon cooking isn't the best thing. Because if you're stressed, your kids are going to feel that, and they're going to know, oh, it's not pleasant for you. So mom's just doing this, and why is she doing this? Because she's grumpy. So just don't. Make sure that this is something that works for not just the kids, but also works for you as the parent. Now, I am known for elaborate. I actually, I don't know if you can see my Yeti cup here, but it says, I know guac is extra, but so am I. And that's what my kids laugh about all the time. They're like, Mom, you're so extra. That is a good and a bad thing. I know that for a fact. So I am known for going elaborate, but that doesn't mean all enchantment is elaborate. Sometimes it can be really simple. when we created our poetry tea time courses to kind of help parents to understand how they could do their own poetry tea time, one of the things we did is we created an elaborate thing so you can have this fancy, awesome poetry tea time, or we actually created a simple version where you just get whatever cookies are in the pantry or grab some muffins from the store and just have juice or, milk or whatever it is you like to drink. And you can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be elaborate and fun. You can even mix it up, sometimes be elaborate, sometimes not. So don't think that because I'm going to give you ideas for a lot of wild and crazy things, there aren't some just simple things that you can add to make it just fun. And one of the things that we like to talk about a lot is milkshake Mondays, or for your older kids, maybe it's lattes in Latin, something. I love alliteration. I'm a, English person. Sorry, literature person, I guess I should say. I am an English speaking person, but so I like to do alliteration, but something like that is very simple. Just, oh, it's Monday, we're going to have milkshakes while we do our algebra, or, lattes in Latin. While we're doing Latin, we're going to have some iced coffee or something like that, whatever fits your kids. So those are some simple ideas, even though a lot of times you're going to hear me talk about elaborate ideas and things we do. So now some of the things that we do are poetry tea times that I mentioned, party schools, which are also can be known as book clubs or end of the year part celebrations or end of a unit celebration. We do sometimes, we don't do as much anymore now the kids are older, but when they were younger, we would do a lot of unit studies at the beginning of our school year. So we might do a whole Greek themed, ancient Greek thing. And at the end, we would make foods that were Greek. We would dress up in togas and stuff like that and just kind of have what we call a party school. Outdoor adventures, that can be as simple as going on a nature walk to, really going out and going on an adventure and checking out something new. So these terms may be new to you, and that's okay, because I'm going to kind of explain them a little more for what that means to us. So here's an example of a poetry tea time. Well, actually, there's two. There's the Emily Dickinson up at the top, and then there's a Jack Prelutsky. So Emily Dickinson was well known for her gingerbread. If you don't know that about her, she was well known around her neighborhood for making gingerbread for people. So we had gingerbread. We had teas that were English teas. We kind of did the whole silver tray thing to kind of keep with the whole theme of, an elegant British tea. But then Jack Prelutsky, he's so much fun and he's modern and he's always doing the comedy. He's kind of like a modern Shel Silverstein. And so his poems are a little crazier. So we had a little more fun with the chocolate, and I believe this was the poem about his mom, where he talks about the chocolate hearts and things. So we had a little more fun with that and kind of pulled it down. It wasn't quite as elaborate. So basically, you're going to get tea and snacks. Now, this is key. Most enchantment involves food. At least in the United States of America. I mean, other cultures are probably better about not eating so much junk, but a lot of enchantment involves food. So this doesn't mean you have to get out teas, although my kids really do love teas, and I host poetry tea time multiple times a month, and even live in person. And they'll drink the tea, and they love the little square cubes of sugar. So tea or water or juice or whatever. And some type of snack. So it can be fancy to go along with your theme, or it can just be whatever you have at the house. Another big part of poetry tea time is giving your kids some autonomy. So you want to let them pick poems. Now, if you go with a theme like Emily Dickinson, then say, okay, well, I want you to look up all the Emily Dickinson poems and pick out some poetry there. You could go with a theme that's like, I don't know, a springtime theme, and say, okay, we're going to pick out springtime poems. So go find all the fun springtime poems you can think of. So give them some kind of theme to work with and let them pick out poems, because part of this is them learning to enjoy poetry. So if you're picking everything out and saying, we're going to talk about this and we're going to study this, then that brings in that whole, this is regular school. We want this to be enchanting. We want this to be different. So let them pick out some poetry. Now, depending on the age of your kids, you can talk about literary elements, or you can leave that out. Like when they're teens, a lot of times we'll talk about, do you hear the alliteration in that? Do you see the illustration, the visual? Can you visualize it? Can you see the imagery? These type of things. You can do that with your younger kids, and I suggest you do, but don't make it, we're going to sit down and we're going to study this literary element today. But as you see a literary element that comes into the poetry, point it out so they're seeing that as they go through the poetry. But basically, poetry tea time is a time when you read poetry and your kids read poetry, and then you write poetry inspired by that poetry. So it could be an Emily Dickinson inspired poem, or it could just be a free verse. Just have fun with it and let the kids have fun with it. So I mentioned the party school. I've got a couple of illustrations. This is Wonder Book Club. So when we finished the book Wonder, we made little apple turnovers. I guess that's what it was. I think it was grilled cheese, actually. That may not actually be Wonder Book Club. That may be another one. Anyway, I know for a fact she made grilled cheese in the Wonder Book Club because he eats grilled cheese a lot. But apparently we made some apple streusel or something there too. When we finished the book Love the Dog, which is about dogs, we ate everything out of dog bowls. So we had dog inspired food, puppy chow, puppy kibble, those kind of things. So you can do that with a novel, or you can do it with a different, like I said, the ancient Greek, ancient Egypt, some of things like that. So just trying to choose foods and decorations that are kind of inspired by whatever you're going to be celebrating, the end of the unit study, the end of the book, or whatever like that. It's also fun to dress up. We just finished our Hobbit summer lit camp, and every week I was meeting with the kids dressed as an elf, or I was dressed as a hobbit. I was dressed as a wizard. And what was a dwarf. So we had all these different things we were dressed up. That is so much fun. The kids love that type of thing. And then plan some hands-on activities. So this could be like she's doing, making the apple streusel. I know that when we did the Teledespero, we made the illegal soup. So the kids were in there chopping and peeling potatoes and stuff and putting everything into the soup thing. And then while we were doing some other things, their soup was cooking. So they had their illegal soup. So you can do all sorts of fun things with that. Just add some different activities and invite friends over. That's always fun too. Here's another example of kind of with your older kids, if maybe they're not into some of the younger things. We had our Alice's Adventures in Wonderland book club. That's some of the decorations we had. And then in the Frankenstein book club, you can see there's my daughter drawing the face of Frankenstein, but they were creating their own Frankenstein, and they literally made a life-size Frankenstein on paper and pencil and stuff, kind of piecing together and making their own thing. So you can do these for little kids and older kids. I know a lot of times it sounds like I'm just talking about little kids, but I'm really not. I'm talking about the older kids as well. Now, the outdoor adventures, one of the things we really love about outdoor adventures is we grab a picture book, and this can really be any age. Grab a picture book, read this picture book, and then go outside. For example, you can see a picture of Fletcher and the springtime blossoms. So we read that story, and then we went outside and we looked for springtime blossoms. And that's a picture of my daughter drawing the blossoms she was seeing. Backyard fairies, after we read that one, we went outside and we put together a little fairy garden in our garden. So just different things like that you can make it a little different, not necessarily just a nature walk, but a nature walk with a little bit of fun or spice to it. But it can be as simple as just grabbing your nature journal and going outside and taking a break from being in the schoolroom, taking a break from being in the living room reading a book, whatever you're doing. Just make it a little different. And I will be honest, everybody needs to step outside every day. It's really good for your mental health. Okay, so some other ideas that we do. You can do movie Monday. So this one's great, especially with your older kids. If you've read a book and then you watch the movie, then you can compare those two things and say, okay, did you think the director had license to change the book? Do you like the book better? Do you like the movie better? And there are cases where we go each way. I remember the first time we did this, it was The Secret Garden. And I'll be honest, I've never seen the movie The Secret Garden. I just read the book. And so they all sit down, and there was a bunch of little middle schoolers sitting at the couch, and all of them were yelling, "This was not in the book. This was not in the book. What is this even about? This is not the book at all." Which made me so happy. So you can do things like that. Tinkering Tuesday, you can obviously see I love alliteration. You could get crate boxes, like we used to get those kiwi crates or engineering boxes, things like that. And if you're into it, tinker yourself, but I am not, so we've already verified that. So grab something like that. Thoughtfulness Thursday is something we've done for years. I've got to change the alliteration because it's now on Fridays, but we do Meals on Wheels. So that's one of the ways we get out in the community and help the community is we're delivering meals to the elderly. Mindfulness Day, very similar, just, taking a moment to step back from yourself, look around you and saying, hey, how can we help others? That is a great way to get your kids out, showing them how we're helping others in the community and things, but also it's part of our education. And it's enchanting because it's not it's not sitting at your desk doing something like that. Science and smoothies, I kind of mentioned that with math and muffins, milkshake Monday, those kind of things. Those are all fun, just adding a little bit of a drink or a snack to your day. Field trip day or journey day, that's a lot of times, or even Fun Friday. Those are a lot of times when we like to get out and explore. So if we're studying something in, say, American history and we can go nearby and visit that, we will do that. Or if there's some type of science museum, we can visit something like that. Those are some ways that we can add in some enchanting things. So anything that's changing up our daily routine. Now, that's why I'm going to talk to you about the planner, because I give you this option to get the planner because I want to show you how to plan enchantment. Now, this I know seems totally backwards, but I promise you, planning enchantment makes it happen so much better than just willy-nilly. That doesn't mean you can't say, okay, we're going to have science in Starbucks today, and we're going to go to Starbucks and sit and do our science. That's obviously you can do that spur of the moment. But some of these things that we want to do, we need to put a little more thought in. So if you grab the planner, what we're going to do is we're just going to think about real quick some things that we could add into enchantment. Because like I said, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you. What works for my kids doesn't necessarily work for your kids. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about what inspires your kids, what interests them, what makes them feel creative, energized, might give them a little boost. So start thinking about those type of things. What are your kids interested? And if any of you want to share in the chat or comments, I can't actually see all those, but maybe Penny can. Do that because you know your kids. I don't know your kids, but you do, and you know what gets them excited. So there might be different things that you can think of that you can maybe jot in there. So what activities do you think would get them excited? And then I want you to think about step 2. Oops, when did I hit that button? Hang on. Step 2, how can we feed that interest? So what activities could we do that we look at those interests, what they're all excited about, what activities could we do? So if your kid's into tinkering, could we get a tinker crate? Could we grab some things together? Could we get an old TV that doesn't work and take it apart and look inside of it? These type of things. What kind of things can we find that would be an activity that would feed their interest? I have one of my kids is an artist. So we would add new mediums. So if she was working on canvas and paints and she kind of had done a lot of that, we might start getting some clay and let her start sculpting, changing up things a little bit. So whatever your children are into. But step number 3, think about what you need for this. So I can't even tell you how many times I thought I was completely prepared and then Amazon did not deliver the thing that I needed for this activity. So kind of take a moment, look around, see what you have. Do you have all the supplies? Do you need to get the supplies? There's nothing worse than getting a third of the way into a project and you're like, oh, we got to now stop. We got to store and buy it, or we just got to put it away until another time. So what do you need? But also, what does this require out of you? So you're having to do this. If this is going to take 3 or 4 hours to do, and you have things that have to be done that evening, you've got meetings or whatever to go to, don't schedule that. Don't do it. I have a kid who has a crazy ballet schedule. She takes 5 different ballet classes. So I have to look. We kind of keep those on Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm not planning crazy stuff because I know at X time, we have to hit the road to get to ballet. So think about how does this going to affect your life, and don't do things on times or the things that are going to make you stressed out. Okay, basically stressed out. We don't want to be stressed out. So the last one, like I said, kind of mentioned this before, is when does it work for your family? So don't do it on those days that's going to get you stressed out and you're going to think, oh no, I can't get all this done. We're in the middle of this and I'm going to panic. I remember we used to do those radish boxes. I don't know if y'all remember those. They were little kits that the kids would have and they would make some kind of meal. And I thought the brilliant thing was on Wednesdays, we would do this. See, we were going to make this fabulous dinner Daddy would come home because he got home a little early on Wednesdays, and we would eat all this dinner, and then we'd go to church as a happy family. What happened every Wednesday, and Toss quit doing it, is Mom was a stressed out maniac, was yelling. Dad was coming home to the crazy chaos of everybody doing all the crazy things, and I'm going, "What are you doing? What are you doing? We're about to get to church. What are you doing? We're not dressed." And then we all would pile in the car and smile when we got to church. It was horrible. So make sure you don't do something like that. Learn from me, please. Do not schedule it within an inch of your life. I do schedule everything in my life within an inch of my life. So don't do that. Okay. And so the last thing I want to talk about was overwhelm. And I know I talk fast, and I know this stuff so well that I kind of start spitting it out really quickly. So feel free to pop in and say, "Hey, Dachelle, this makes no sense. Explain this to me." But I want to talk about overwhelm because I don't want you to go, "Oh my goodness, there's no way I can pull this off." You can. First, let's start with the planner. So I give you a little planner. And like I said, I know it seems a little weird to plan enchantment, but if you can see it on a calendar or you can see it in your schedule, then a lot of times it helps you not get stressed out about it. So I can look and say, okay, I got a poetry tea time, and we always do poetry tea times at the very beginning of the month. So I got poetry tea time at the beginning of the month. That means I'm not going to be scheduling any more really big deal things. So poetry tea time is a big deal in our family, in our homeschool community. Book clubs are a big deal. So I'm not scheduling other things on those weeks. So we're not even going to do anything simple. I know it says that on that planner that we are, but we really aren't. Other than Thoughtful Thursday, which we do every week. So those are kind of things that I want to put on that calendar so I can say, okay, know that day. I'm kind of scheduling the day out because that's going to be a 2 or 3 hour event. And even with book clubs, because those are about a 3 hour event, and we have a lot of friends that join us, I schedule nothing else on that day because I know it's not going to get done. It's just not. So start with the planner and try to put things into the planner, help you see what your month is going to look like. And you can do this for a week too. This is in your planner as well. This gives you some ideas of things that you can add to your week, and then you can kind of see them on your week there, so you know, okay, don't overschedule myself on this week. And then I want you to just choose one thing. So I've given you a lot of things that you can add in to make your week or month or year fun. Don't do them all at one time. We never do everything at one time. Like I said, book club is a very big deal in this family, and we're gonna meet live with people in person, and then I'm gonna meet virtually in person the next day with book club. It is such a big ordeal that week is basically shot for me. So just choose one thing. If it's book club, do book club. If it's poetry tea time, poetry tea time. If it's milkshake Mondays, just do that. Just add one thing. Try not to add too many things and then get over, because that's going to make you overwhelmed. Just try one thing, and if you can kind of get that one pulled off more frequently, then add in some more things. And this doesn't mean you have to do it all the time. So I had one lady ask me one time, she was like, "But poetry tea time, I don't know how to do that every week." And I just kind of laughed and I said, "I've never done it every week." And she said, "You don't?" No, I do it once a month because that's literally all I can handle is once a month poetry tea time. So no, you don't have to do it every week. And in fact, I strongly suggest you don't, because enchantment is enchanting only when it's a once in a while, happens, infrequently type of thing. If it's every day, then that's normal. That's not enchanting anymore.
Right.
And the next thing is be flexible, because when you start doing these things, it's going to mess up your schedule. If you're, huge into the scheduling, let that go. If you don't get to science this today because you had so much fun at poetry tea time, that's fine. Science will be there tomorrow. Science will be there next month. You don't have to get to it all. Let yourself be flexible. As Penny said, we don't have to follow all the rules of school. We don't have to do 8 a.m. to 8:55 a.m. this class, 9:10 to 9:25 this, whatever. We can do whatever we want. So if we spend all week really getting in touch with poetry and learning things or nature or whatever it is we're doing that we're really studying about, that's okay. The rest of it will still be there later, I promise. And I've got, like I said, 2 kids in college and 1 in high school. They're all fine. I mean, they got their issues. It has nothing to do with homeschooling. Maybe because they have an ADD mom, but That's probably what it is. And so the last thing I would say is just remember the goal here. The goal is that we're trying to do things that are feeding our kids' interest. We're getting them excited so they want to learn. So they don't see education as a chore, but more of something that is a lifelong thing that they want to do. You get excited when you want to learn something new. You want them to get excited when they want to learn something new too, and not more of a drudgery. There are certain things in my life, like especially coding on my website, that make my brain fry. And I literally will do everything in the world to try to avoid them. But there's other things that I will stop everything, put everything in the back burner because, ooh, I want to go do this. It's fun. It's exciting. And we want our kids to be excited about learning, not think it's just a drudgery and a bore. So that is our goal. So what questions do you have?
We
Okay.
do have a question from Lourdes.
Okay.
She asks, is this all adaptable to working homeschool parents of high schoolers?
Oh, fabulous question. Okay, so yes, it absolutely is. I am a working homeschool parent of high schoolers. So yes, the key here is when you're a working mom, and I actually, one of my closest friends is Jim McKinnon, who runs the Working Homeschool Mom Club, and she has like 35,000 working homeschool moms in there. And we talk about this all the time because when you're a working mom, you have to be more cognizant of your schedule and your time. And that's really important. That's why I say the planner is a great thing because you can then go, okay, I know that I'm going to do this enchanting fun, whatever it is. It's going to take a lot of time. If I'm working, then I need to either work my work schedule out or I need to plan it on a time when I'm not having to do the working part. And that's where the stress and the overwhelm comes. And that's where I get a lot of parents saying to me, I can never do this. And you can do this. I mean, honestly, it's why I created Literary Adventures for Kids, because all these things we show you how to do. We give you the tools to do them. Okay, hey, we just finished this book club. Here's the activities you're going to do. You go grab these different supplies. I'm going to give them all to you, and then you're going to go from there. So it's completely doable, but don't let yourself become overwhelmed by trying to fit yourself in a mold. So especially with high schoolers, they're moody, they're emotional, they change their mind every 5 seconds, I swear. I have a bunch of them in this house, so I know exactly what these high schoolers and teenagers are like. So you have to be adaptable with them. Poetry tea time, probably not going to look the same because they're going to be like, that's a little kid thing. So you're going to change it up. I still have lots of teenagers in my poetry tea time, but they look at it as a different thing. So instead of it being this cutesy fun thing where we're reading Shel Silverstein, they're pulling out Walt Whitman and really digging in. What did he really mean when he wrote this? So you can see it as a different level with them. So I just say when you want to pull out these things, remember that you're working homeschool mom. You need to be careful of not being invasive of your own time. Really schedule that out. Use the planner to know, okay, I'm doing these special things. But also because you're a working homeschool parent, you're probably not as able to do as many things as some other parents are. I know for me, there are things that I can't go do because I have to do work. I have to do this, I have this schedule. So if I can't go out and meet with the co-op and do all this, like we've had co-ops that met every week and stuff, and I'm like, I know I can't do that. Personally, I can't have in my life a weekly co-op. We did it one time and I nearly had a breakdown. It was just too much. So I look at that and go, okay, I can't do that. So, but what can I do monthly? What can I do once in a while? Just give them those little moments of enchantment. It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be every week. Just occasionally bring those things in to make them exciting and fun. So that's a great question. And I could talk for a long time about that, but I will not.
Yeah, that's good because we have another question here in Facebook. Patty Lewis asks, she says, I need to take a look at your website, but are there things that are adaptable to multi-ages? My youngest is 8 and oldest 15, 6 boys altogether, and occasionally my 9-year-old niece. We are moving toward family schooling, multi-age learning. So
I love that.
Multi-ages.
So I love that. So the only reason I would say that there are certain things that are not adaptable to multiple ages is depending on the maturity level of what you're doing. So if we're doing a book club, for example, I teach multiple book clubs each month. And this month we're doing, August, sorry, starting next week, we're doing Peter Pan, Peter Rabbit, because I'm an idiot and put two Peters in the same month. Whew, it has been loads of fun sorting that out. And Animal Farm, apparently going with an animal theme. Animal Farm, obviously, I am not going to have the Peter Pan and Peter Rabbit kids reading. So those things are, where you're going to break it out by the maturity level of what your novels are or your unit study is. But most of the time, like for Poetry Tea Time, we can still do that in multiple levels. Even I have a lot of times non-readers come in. The non-readers like to join and their parents will help them out or older siblings will help them out. And I do give, like, for example, we're doing Beatrix Potter as our first Poetry Tea Time, which, by the way, I didn't bring this, but it's free if you guys want to join us. I'll have to get you a link. But you can see what I'm talking about is we're going to have different age groups in there. And then I'll have poetry for the littles will be animal poetry. So we're going to talk about how to create poetry inspired by Beatrix Potter's love of animals. We're also going to have phrastic poetry for the older kids because of her beautiful illustrations. We're going to talk about imagery and how we're inspired by the illustration. So we're going to have like a different level there, but we're all going to be reading Beatrix Potter. We're all going to be absorbed in that, enjoying it. So most of these activities I'm giving you are going to be adaptable to any age. I would just basically focus on if you're going to have like the entire group of littles all the way to high school in there, that you make sure that your materials are not going to have things that you don't want the littles hearing or reading. And I'm not saying that are over their head, because sometimes that's okay to have the littles reading, listening to things overhead, but things that are not appropriate for them. So, Animal Farm is not one of the worst ones that I think of, but there's things like Crime and Punishment. I don't think you want your littles in a book club of that. So you definitely adapt. You can easily adapt, and just, remember that if you're going to have an activity for them to do, make sure that everybody can do the activity, or you have some type of version that you can tone it down a little bit for the little kids, or they don't have to do the entire thing. So when we meet in our live book clubs, I separate them out virtually. But when we're together in our homeschool group, what we'll do is we'll have like maybe an art project, and the littles are going to do one part of it, whereas the older kids are going to go a little more elaborate. So that type of thing. How's that? Explain that.
She said thank you. So you answered her question.
Good.
Okay, I don't see any other questions.
Oh, you know what? Okay. If you'll go here, I've got this slide up. It says, grab a free course, hithechocolate.com/free. That's going to take you over to Literary Adventures for Kids, which is my language arts program website. And that is going to give you access to, I think there's like 5 courses there, but you're going to see an elementary one, a kind of middle school elementary one, a high school one. You're going to see several different free courses there, and those will give you some ideas. One of them is based on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So if you've got that book, you could read that and do some fun activities with it. Another one's on Wonder. And if you got older kids, it's Call of the Wild. So you can see what I'm talking about when I'm saying adding those activities in and fun, and the party schools all in there. And these are not parts of courses. So you're not going to get part of it and go, oh no, she's going to make me pay for the rest, or I don't get it. This is a whole course. You get to go in there and see, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about when I say we're going to have a party school, we're going to have food, we're going to have decorations, we're going to have different activities for the kids. So that is go to hithechocolate.com/free. If you go to Literary Adventure Kids, I think it's /P/free courses, because each one makes me do a P.
Does that? Yeah. Beth is asking for the link to your planner.
Oh, that was at the beginning. Let me. We'll just skip right away, because I'm going to be honest. I think it's hithechocolate.com/enchantment, but I've been doing this for there it is. I've been doing so many different conference talks for this weekend, and I'm not sure where I'm at anymore. hithechocolate.com/enchantment, and you can sign up there and you'll get it in your email. So make sure you check your email for it. That is the planner that we just went through. It's kind of like a little sampler. No, actually, the enchantment planner is the full planner. That is not a sampler. That is the full planner. So you can get, it has ideas, different things you can add to enchantment, but it also has the kind of the calendar where you can make it on the monthly or weekly or whatever plan that you like. And it also breaks down what I talked about. So it's going to have your what is enchantment and kind of some of the ideas and the explanation for them in there too. I guess I could stop sharing this now.
Try to get that into the chat.
Oh, I was going to give you the free virtual poetry tea time. If I can, I know I have it somewhere easily. I'll pull that up and put it in the chat as well. But are there any other questions?
I don't see any more. Jessica Anderson in Facebook says, I love Dachelle McVey's book clubs because you can adapt it to your family. And
Oh,
she's from Patty Lewis. That's what I have done.
we love Jessica Anderson too. And I hope she's not driving as she's talking.
I don't think she is anymore.
Okay, here it is. It's actually, if you go to hithechocolate.com/virtual poetry tea time, but I'm going to go ahead and plop the link in here in the chat.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute, that is not correct. Sorry, it took me to a Trello. Hang on. See, I knew I would talk too soon, didn't I? So there's the bird form. So this will this is the bird form. What it'll do, it'll take you over to poetry tea time, and you can sign up. We are going to be having a poetry tea time on August 2nd at 10 a.m. So that is next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And you can you bring your kids and I will teach them poetry tea time, but you'll be able to see what exactly I'm talking about with this, how we go about doing it so that you can do it at home.
Great. And you also have given us a coupon code. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
I did remember that.
20% off, right? With the code Homeschool Fun in all caps, all one word, Homeschool Fun. And go to Literary Adventures for Kids and look around.
Yeah. And I will tell you, we're going to, coupon is great right now. We are going to be having some big sales at the end of the month, next month, but it won't, the coupon applies to everything, but the sales, the back to school sales will just be on our series. So it is, yeah, it's a fun time around Literary Adventures Kids right now.
Wow. You have a lot going on.
We do. We're so busy. I'm tired. Oh, yeah, I saw another question.
I'm tired just hearing about all you're doing.
Okay, so how do I get my daughter interested in poetry? Just to mention, it makes her cringe. Yeah, it does. And most adults are going to cringe too. So, okay. First of all, you don't say we're going to do poetry because that gets them all stressed out. You have to find gateways. So like, for example, what I said, a lot of kids, I've gotten them into poetry through poetry tea time because it's a moment where we're getting snacks and we're getting drinks and we're sitting around and we're doing something that's kind of out of the ordinary. One of the ways that we do with the teenagers, we have a course called A Poem a Day, and it's where I teach how to do poetry in 10 minutes a day. So basically, grab any kind of poetry you want to. If you want them to just have a book and say, pick a poem out of there and pick any poem they want to. And then, use it, write out the poetry. So first, what I would say is to listen to it. So have them close their eyes, you read it aloud to them and say, okay, visualize anything you see in there. It does not matter if they have the same idea that you have about this poetry or anybody else on the planet, or if they see something that's totally crazy and makes no sense to the poetry. That's okay. This is their visualization. So let them visualize as you're reading it aloud. Then let them read it and kind of look at it and absorb it. You can do copy work if you're Charlotte Mason, that kind of thing. See if you can pull out any literary elements. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can Google real quick what's a literary element in this to kind of give them that little bit of a grammar to it. But what I really like for them to do is to really get in and say, what do you think this poem means? Because a lot of times how we teach poetry is by teaching it by saying, this is what this poem means. Do you see this? Let's analyze this. And poets, for the most part, don't want you to do that. They want you to see it. It's like art. They want you to see it the way it makes you feel or has to do with your experiences in life. So my experiences as a 50-year-old woman are going to be very different than my 15-year-old child. She doesn't have those same experiences. So when I read a poem, I'm like, oh, that's so touching. That's so sad. You know, this mom, she's not going to see that because she's never been a mom. She's never going to react that way. So we want to let them have that as an experience and validate them. Don't make poetry an analysis. Don't do what literally you probably every teacher did to you in school. It's say analyze it, pull out all the grammar, pull out all the limits, let them just enjoy it for the moment. And I will say with teenagers, you can mix up the classics and the modern. They're going to probably gravitate to those poems like that are more cryptic and a little dark because that's where they're at. You know, I remember there's one poem that I was just thinking about it the other day that it was, I think it was called How to Kill a Man and How to Kill a Man. Wasn't awful. But when I was 16, I was like, this is awesome. And it was all about, you know, very cryptic about, you know, in the medieval times, it's how you done it. And this times you done it. And then in the 21st century, you just drop him into the 21st century. And, you know, it was just very dramatic kind of thing. But they're going to be into those types of poetry. That's not to say that they're not going to love a good Jack Prelutsky or Shel Silverstein because they're hilarious. You know, I love them as adults too. So just let them really enjoy it. Once you get them to enjoy it, then you can go further and say, well, what do you really think about this? What do you think the author was saying? And keep in mind that it doesn't really matter. It's what they think. And I always like to tell this one illustration that Robert Frost, there was a poem, and I never can remember if it's The Stopping by the Woods or if it's, yeah, I can't remember which one it is. I never can remember. I'm going to have to look it up. But it was like going on and on that professors were saying it was about suicide. And somebody finally asked him, and he was like, no, it's not. It's literally about stopping by the woods. And I just thought that was so funny. So we can overanalyze things and make it not what it really is. So make it what it is to the you and them and let them have fun with poetry. And not everybody's going to like poetry, but I will say this, there's just as many different types of poetry as there are genres of books. So I guarantee you can find at least one. And if you can't find it in a book, then pull out some of that music they listen to and let's start really analyzing that because lyrics are totally poetry.
True. Mm-hmm. That's good. Jessica Anderson on Facebook said, Lourdes, if you look on day one of the high school conference, Dachelle talks and walks you through how to do it in 10 minutes. If you haven't seen this video, definitely watch it.
That is true. And we go through a William Wordsworth poem and we really step through it so you can see what I'm talking about when I say, you know, if you want to pull out the literary elements. We have a course that does that, but it's really simple. You just, you know, if you want to grab some poetry and just start doing that yourself, it's literally not a big deal. 10 minutes a day, and you can really add that into your schedule. Lesson plans, I guess.
So a quick question. I didn't want to type it all out. So let's say, because my daughter's really into K-pop, and she does talk about the lyrics all the time. I don't understand them. She's been taking Korean for 4 years. I have 0 Korean in my history. So she's really into art, though. We have a lot of art stuff. We have a lot of paint stuff. Can these two be mixed? I guess what I'm asking is, if we start with poetry time, like on a Saturday, which is my day off, and then can it develop into like just a whole art class, a whole art session, and just do you understand what I'm saying? Going with the theme.
Yeah.
Is that doable?
Absolutely. In fact, if you go back and watch that video that Jessica's talking about, one of the things we start with is visualization, and we actually have the kids as I'm reading the poetry, they're thinking about what they're seeing, and then I have them, if they're artistic, to draw it, paint it, whatever, pull that out and get images. For the little kids, it's more just talking, is you know, depending on how artistic they are. I have one kid who refuses to do any art thing, so she's going to tell me everything, she's going to write it out. But another one's very artistic, and she's going to draw something. So I really think that's a great way, because poetry is very similar to art in that it's very much what we feel in our emotions. So do the visualizations, let them turn that into an art thing. I mean, you can really go from that to have a huge study of poetry, art, literature in general. If you're like really taking that, I know one class that my daughter did, she even did like, she created a talk that went around it. So like kind of a Devo that went around the art that she created. So anything like that that you want to add in, absolutely. And if your kid's interested in it, more the better. Totally. Yes, absolutely do that.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, you're very welcome. Well, I am going to hope that you guys are going to join me for virtual poetry tea time, and I'd love to see you guys there on Wednesday. So I will show you exactly how I do all this, even for the youngers and elders, because we'll have two types. So if you have questions there, just join me there, and I'll walk you through it. But also, there is a little button on my website that you can book like a 10-minute call if you have questions about any of our stuff. Feel free to do that. I meet with people like literally all the time. In fact, I've got a meeting in 7 minutes with somebody talk about it. So I do that all the time.
Wow. You are very busy.
It's stupidly busy. Do not live my life.
Thank you so much for working us in. I really appreciate it. And this was great.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Penny, for inviting me.
You added so much to my little challenge here. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope everybody can get a hold of the resources that she's talked about and implement them in your homeschool and add the fun and enchantment to your homeschool. And I just hope that everybody can come tomorrow to my challenge again. And I won't have a big speaker, a big famous speaker. It'll be me, but please come anyway. And we'll just see you tomorrow.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
Thank you.